Hey guys, I'm Sean Lang, and thanks for purchasing this lesson. So today we're going to be talking about foot technique pretty in depth. I'm going to try to address some of the questions that I get and see if I can just give you guys as many answers to the questions you may have without you having to ask them. So first off, there are many different types of techniques out there, and there is no one right technique. It all depends on you, your body, and what you want to achieve. Two of the most common terms that you're throwing around are heels up and heels down. Now, neither one of these techniques is better than the other per se. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. Heels up will give you a greater point of power because you're putting all of the weight of your legs into the bass drum stroke that you're giving. You're balancing all of the weight on the ball of your foot, and when you actually hit down, it's the full weight of your leg. So this is a good technique to use for someone who's playing harder, more aggressive music, and not as good of a technique to use for someone who's going to be playing light, acoustic, or maybe jazz, something like that. Now, a con right off the bat to heels up is that you're moving more to create a stroke. When you're hitting it, you're moving your whole leg up and down, and if you're trying to do that in a very fast motion there, eventually you're going to tire because you're moving your whole body. So it's not necessarily the best technique for someone who wants to play really, really fast, but for a lot of power, it's perfect. So heels down, on the other hand, is not going to be for someone who wants to play powerfully. You can get some good strokes out there, but basically your full foot is resting on the pedal, and your heel tends to be the fulcrum. So you're basically limited to how hard you can stamp down from your ankle or from your heel to the floor, about 4 or 5 inches. So you won't necessarily get a ton of power out of that unless you really, really practice at it, but it does give you a little bit more finesse and control once you get good at it. Again, it's a great technique for people who want to play light, people who are really concerned about burying the beater. Burying the beater means when you're resting your foot, when you're not hitting the bass drum, the beater is touching the bass drum head rather than away. One thing that happens when you rest it on the bass drum head is you choke out any of the excess resonance and you lose some tone. But this is really only an issue for people who are playing music where there's a lot of space and room for the tone to breathe. For something like hard rock or metal, where there's going to be a lot of hard notes hitting in a row, you're not going to want that resonance. That's going to muddy things up. So it really depends, again, on what you're trying to achieve. But heels down allows you to have greater control over not burying the beater if you don't want to, which is great for jazz and other sort of mellow music where you want to hear that bass drum resonate a little bit. Now, there are some other obscure techniques that come into play that sort of rest in between heels up and heels down for single strokes and also for double strokes. I'm not going to cover all of them, but one of the ones that I do use is commonly referred to as flat foot, or also ankles. Now, this is going to be sort of a hybrid between heels up and heels down, because you're still doing all the work with the ball of your foot, but you're doing a lot of control with the ankles, similar to if you were playing heels down. Now, I find that this is the best for speed. Again, it's all what you're trying to achieve, but it's best for speed because I can get a little bit more power because I'm hitting with the ball of my foot, but I have a lot more control because I'm using my ankles, and so it's sort of the best of both worlds. Again, it's not going to be nearly as powerful as straight heels up playing, but you're not going to achieve the same speed with straight heels up playing that you could with flat foot. There's a lot of literature on flat foot that I've put out with Drumeo that's on YouTube, and there are still extra questions on top of that. I'll probably make a couple lessons for my lesson site here as well for you guys. So I want to talk a little bit about bad habits and good habits. Let's start with the good habits. So first off, it's good to make sure that your pedal is set to a way that you can play it, but make sure that you don't spend too much time adjusting it. then we're getting into bad habit territory. So we want to make sure that it is adjusted well. It's good to try leaving it just the way you got it out of the box. The spring tension usually halfway, the beaters aren't really too close or too far. So just try to leave it as is and try to get comfortable with the pedal like that, unless you're noticing a distinct problem with it. It's a very, very good habit to look at your feet when you're playing and make sure that they are doing what you think they're doing. Sometimes our body has a way of trying to correct our motion, and sometimes it gets it right and sometimes it gets it very wrong. So you want to make sure that when you're looking down, your feet are on the footboard the way you want them to be. To give you an example, when I first started playing double pedal, I developed a really bad habit where, say, the pedals are oriented this way, my feet were actually, my heels were almost touching, and just the tips of my feet were touching the footboard, and that felt comfortable to me, but I couldn't figure out why my power was really bad and why I wasn't getting any faster. And so finally I looked down and I was shocked that I had no idea that my feet were doing this really, really weird sort of duck-footed, strange technique thing. So I corrected that by just practice and continually looking down to make sure that if that was happening, I was correcting it. So you want to make sure that that you're always watching for what your feet are doing so that you can correct that intentionally, because eventually it becomes habit and you don't even need to think about it. Your body just holds that for you. It's very good to practice things repetitively and over a long period of time, you know, say weeks, months, years, and gauge your progress. Bass drum technique is something that takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. There are some genetic freaks that get very good at it very quickly, but that is not the norm for most of us. So plot your progress and be consistent, and you will see results. It's also a good habit to play on other pedals that you don't feel comfortable with. Now, this isn't always readily available to most of us, so this isn't a big thing, but if you have the option, go for it. You don't want to get really good at one specific pedal and then still be pretty bad at another pedal. You want to be able to take your skills and port them to any musical situation. So if you're playing on somebody else's kit, you still want to be able to play as comfortably and smoothly as you normally do. You don't want to be that guy that says, I usually play really good at home on my kit, this is my kit so I can't play good. Nobody really believes that guy anyway, so it's just nice not to be that guy. Okay, so bad habits. I touched on this first one briefly in the good habits, and that was your pedal setup. It's a bad habit, very bad habit, to get stuck up in tweaking your pedal. I've spent hours, probably days in total, tweaking my pedals, trying to find that one setting that makes me better. And you know what? It doesn't exist. The only thing that makes me better is practice and putting in the time and just doing it rather than looking for that one easy button that you press that just makes you better. That doesn't exist, unfortunately. So don't waste time tweaking things. Just make sure that your pedals feel good, make sure that you can play, and then just go from there. Another bad habit is tensing up. Make sure that when you're playing, you're staying very relaxed. It's really common for drummers, especially when they're learning double kick, to really sort of like tense up, you know, have like their abs totally clenched and just sort of like playing over top of the drums. You really just want to be nice and loose and relaxed and just you know, feeling good, so that when you play those double kick patterns, you play them from the area that you're trying to play them from. You're not trying to play them from your face and from your chest and your abs, and you know, you're not trying to play it from here. You're trying to play it from, you know, I'd say hips and down, more so knees down. You really want all the playing to take place down here, not up here. This is just to stay stabilized, so that you know you still got to play with your hands too. And so if you're taking all of your body towards putting the effort to your bass drum, well then your hands start to suffer. You'll notice this actually with less skilled drummers, is when they're playing, they sound great, and then suddenly the double kick comes in and they're playing it really, really soft. It's because they're focusing their whole body on the double pedal and their bass drum technique, and that's not good. So bad habit. It's not very good to switch between techniques too often. Back when I was younger, I found myself trying to learn flat foot, which I eventually did, and I really stuck at it, but flat foot, and then I wanted to figure out heels up, and then I wanted to try this other technique, and then maybe heels down, and I was just wasting so much time because I would devote, a couple weeks to practicing one thing before I decided that it wasn't working for me, which is terrible. You've got to devote hours, weeks, months, technically years to get good at something, so a couple of weeks isn't going to do it. So find a technique that works for you and stick to it, and once you nail that, move on to the next one, but don't just pick and choose and try a little bit here, a little bit there. You're not really going to be any better for it in the long run. This is sort of similar to the first bad habit I brought up, but don't worry about the gear. Don't worry about that next pedal that's going to make you any better. Sure, one pedal might make it a little bit easier for you to play, but it's not going to make you as a drummer better. It's not going to make you understand music better. It's not going to make your playing any tighter. It just might react a little bit nicer. And forums are really bad for this, because people will sit on forums and other people will post their reviews, which is helpful, but then you start thinking that, okay, so this guy and this guy use this pedal, but I'm using this pedal. They're a little bit better than me. I should get rid of mine and get what they're playing, and then you get that pedal, and then you're no different. You're still the same player as you were before. So don't get caught up in hopping from pedal to the next best thing, because the next best thing isn't going to make you that much better of a player. Okay, let's talk about some frequently asked questions. I constantly get asked, how can I get faster, and how can I increase my stamina? Well, these are very, very basic but open-ended questions. There's a lot of different ways to fix this. I would start by watching the lesson I posted a couple weeks ago on double bass stamina and control. That is definitely the one you want to watch. But it comes down to putting in the time and repetition. Again, there's no shortcut. So if you want to get faster, you need to practice at speeds that you're comfortable at, but for extended periods of time, and then you up the tempo to something that you're okay at but not great at. You practice that for a while until you get good at that, and you bump up the tempo again and again and again and again. It's fairly basic. It's really boring and mundane, and that's why a lot of people don't do it, because you've got to put in the time to see the results. If you want to see extra results, put in more time on single foot. So the same idea where you're just hitting singles on the right, on the left. Be consistent with how much time you dedicate into both. Again, that's sort of similar to my stamina and control lesson. I often get asked, Sean, what's the best double pedal? Come on guys, there is no best double pedal. There are great double pedals, there are good double pedals, there are pedals that are better for you than for others. There is no one double pedal that is better. Me personally, I've always preferred Axis. It's a little bit on the higher end, and it's not for everyone. I work at a music store and I sell these pedals to some people, and some people love them and some people bring it back because it's not for them. So there is no best double pedal, there's no best single pedal. There's just what works best for you, so don't get caught up in that. Some people ask me, do triggers make you faster? They don't. They help you though. It is a monitoring tool. If you're playing with triggers and you're monitoring it directly in your earphones, you can hear exactly what you're playing on the bass drum, and that allows you to play better. You know what you're doing, you have a better mind to foot connection. It sounds kind of weird, but it's true. You have a better connection between your mind and your feet, and you play tighter. For me, a big issue live is when I'm playing double kick, I can't hear it anymore because there's so much low end going with the guitars and the bass, and I can't hear it anymore. So monitoring my triggers gives me that extra definition that I can hear, and then it makes me play better. I always have a worse show when I can't hear my kicks, when my triggers aren't working. Now that's not always the best thing, but I can't always count on the sound man to give me a good monitor mix. So it technically just gives me control so I can hear the bass drum. Now there are some people that trigger and they're using it as a way to do some of the work for them, because they're playing and their beater is coming this far away from the skin. And I mean, technically it's music and so it's allowed, but it seems a little bit cheap to me. But again, that's sort of a completely different conversation. I'm not going to criticize anyone. So yeah, use it for what you need to, and again, it's what you're trying to achieve. Don't let anyone judge you. Just do what's best for you, as long as you're not developing any bad habits. Okay, so this has been Base Drum Technique in-depth analysis. Bunch of questions, bunch of good habits and bad habits. If you guys have any other questions, or if you want me to do a part 2, just ask in the comments, or also email me. Just sign up for my email list on my website, SeanLang.com, and then email me there. So yeah, cheers.